Astounding revelations about the Space Shuttle Challenger tragedy. On January 28, 1986, just 73 seconds after liftoff from Cape Canaveral, Florida, the Space Shuttle Challenger erupted in a catastrophic explosion. The world watched in horror on live television as the fireball plummeted toward the Atlantic Ocean below. The devastating loss of the Challenger and its 7 crew members, Francis Dick Scobie, Mike Smith, Judy Resnick, Ellison Onizuka, Ron McNair, Greg Jarvis, and Krista McAuliffe, left America in shock and became a defining moment for an entire generation. Today, we're exploring some astounding revelations about the Challenger shuttle disaster. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment telling us what other space exploration topics you'd like us to cover. The pioneering Challenger. Originally constructed in 1975 as a test vehicle for NASA's Space Shuttle program, Challenger wasn't converted into a fully operational spacecraft until 1979. The shuttle made history during its first launch in 1983 when it carried astronauts on the program's first spacewalk. Challenger continued breaking barriers by transporting Sally Ride, America's first female astronaut, and Guion Bluford, the first African-American astronaut, into orbit. The Teacher in Space program. The fateful Challenger mission was meant to be historic because of crew member Krista McAuliffe, a 37-year-old social studies teacher from Concord High School in New Hampshire. Selected through NASA's Teacher in Space program, McAuliffe was set to become the first educator in space. This publicity initiative was designed to inspire children and generate attention for NASA, with plans for McAuliffe to conduct educational lessons from orbit. Due to her participation, media coverage was extensive, with NASA providing a raw satellite feed to numerous schools. Tragically, thousands of school children, including McAuliffe's own students, witnessed the disaster unfold live. Big Bird almost joined the mission. Remarkably, Krista McAuliffe wasn't the only passenger intended to capture children's attention on the Challenger. NASA actually approached Carol Spinney, the beloved actor who portrayed Big Bird on Sesame Street, about joining the mission. While ultimately not approved by Mission Control, NASA confirmed in 2015 that discussions with Spinney and the Sesame Street producers had indeed taken place. Warning signs. Ignored Mike Smith, the mission pilot on STS-51L, NASA's designation for the flight, was embarking on his first and final spaceflight. Smith holds the somber distinction of speaking the last words recorded from any Challenger crew member. Just before the explosion, the shuttle's voice recorder captured him saying, "Uh-oh," indicating at least one astronaut recognized something was wrong. Smith wasn't alone in his concerns. The evening before launch, engineers from Morton Thiokol, a NASA contractor, urgently tried to convince their superiors to postpone the mission. They held a critical meeting, highlighting that the launch was scheduled for colder temperatures than any previous shuttle mission. A crucial factor, since the rubber O-rings sealing various shuttle components had frequently malfunctioned in cold conditions. Tragically, management overruled these engineers. One engineer, Bob Eberling, returned from the meeting and told his wife, "It's going to blow up." Years later, Eberling revealed that NASA had their minds set on going up and proving to the world they were right, and they knew what they were doing. But they didn't. The disaster haunted Eberling for the rest of his life. The technical failure. The Morton Thiokol engineers' predictions proved devastatingly accurate. The launch proceeded in below-freezing temperatures, and upon liftoff, the O-ring seal on the right rocket booster failed catastrophically. Heated gas escaped from the rocket and essentially vaporized the material, connecting the booster to the shuttle's fuel tank. This created a lethal mixture of liquid oxygen and hydrogen that ignited at 46,000 feet, transforming the Challenger's fuel tank into a massive fireball. The solid fuel strap-on boosters remained intact and continued propelling the disintegrating shuttle upward, the horrifying truth about the crew's fate. In the immediate aftermath, many believed the Challenger crew died instantly. However, subsequent evidence revealed a far more disturbing reality that NASA had attempted to conceal. An independent investigation by the Miami Herald's Tropic magazine uncovered that the shuttle cabin had not depressurized during the explosion, meaning the crew likely remained conscious during the entire 3-mile descent to the Atlantic Ocean. This conclusion was supported by evidence showing several astronauts had manually activated their emergency air supplies. NASA's safety record. While space travel inherently carries extreme risks, prior to the Challenger disaster, NASA had never lost an astronaut during actual spaceflight. The only previous astronaut fatalities were the Apollo 1 tragedy, when Roger Chaffee, Virgil Gus Grissom, and Edward White perished in a launch pad fire during ground testing on January 27, 1967, almost exactly 19 years before Challenger. Reagan's presidential response. January 28th was not only scheduled for Challenger's launch, but also President Ronald Reagan's State of the Union address. With the disaster only 6 hours old, Reagan postponed his annual speech to address the nation about the tragedy instead. His powerful words, "The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us with the manner in which they lived their lives," became one of his most memorable addresses, remarkable even for a president nicknamed the Great Communicator. Recovery efforts. The Challenger explosion scattered debris across a vast area of the Atlantic Ocean. Recovery teams spent weeks collecting fragments, but it took 6 full weeks before Navy divers finally located the crew cabin 100 feet underwater, approximately 15 miles east of Cape Canaveral. The astronauts' remains were recovered. Those that could be identified were returned to their families, while others were interred beneath a memorial at Arlington National Cemetery. Systematic failures. Subsequent investigations determined that NASA had knowingly violated its own launch protocols. Engineers had explicitly warned about the cold temperatures, and launching in such conditions directly contradicted NASA's established procedures. Ken Iliff, a former NASA chief scientist, later stated that this failure to follow safety protocols was the primary cause of the disaster. Why would NASA ignore these warnings? The Rogers Commission investigation revealed that pressure to accelerate launch frequency to meet NASA's ambitious goal of 24 missions per year had pushed personnel and systems beyond their capabilities. This aggressive schedule was directly tied to the Space Shuttle program's survival, as it struggled to fulfill its intended purpose as a versatile launch vehicle, serving America's commercial, scientific, and military requirements. Program suspension and legacy. The Challenger explosion made headlines worldwide and immediately triggered calls to halt the entire Space Shuttle program. The resulting 3-year suspension allowed NASA to implement safety recommendations from the Presidential Rogers Commission, which included prominent astronauts like Neil Armstrong and Sally Ride. These measures largely succeeded. NASA wouldn't experience another tragic incident until 2003, when Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated during re-entry. Challenger debris continued washing ashore on Florida beaches long after the disaster. In December 1996, almost 11 years post-explosion, beachgoers at Cocoa Beach, over 20 miles from Kennedy Space Center, discovered large shuttle fragments in the surf, pieces so substantial that NASA needed heavy machinery to remove them. Civilian space travel impact. The death of civilian Krista McAuliffe particularly damaged public confidence in the space program, with repercussions lasting decades. NASA wouldn't send another civilian into space for 22 years, when Barbara Morgan, originally McAuliffe's backup for the Challenger mission, joined Space Shuttle Endeavour's crew for a successful 2007 mission. Cultural impact. The Challenger disaster profoundly changed America and its space program forever, inspiring numerous artistic tributes across various media. At the 1986 Rendezvous Houston concert, musician Jean-Michel Jarre performed a saxophone solo that Challenger astronaut Ronald McNair had intended to play during the mission. This tribute was later sampled by artists including Frank Turner, Adam Young, John Denver, and Beyoncé. Popular television shows like Punky Brewster and Star Trek The Next Generation also incorporated the tragedy into their storylines. The soccer ball that returned to space. When Challenger was destroyed, it carried not just astronauts and scientific equipment, but also a soccer ball belonging to crew member Ellison Onizuka's daughter, Janelle's high school team. Remarkably, the ball was recovered intact from the wreckage and returned to Onizuka's daughter, who donated it to Clear Lake High School as a memorial. 30 years later, astronaut Shane Kimbrough, whose daughter also attended Clear Lake, requested permission to take the ball on his mission to the International Space Station. In February 2017, Kimbrough shared an emotional photo from space showing Onizuka's soccer ball floating in zero gravity, completing its journey to the stars. Do you remember the Challenger disaster? Where were you when it happened? Let us know in the comments below and check out our other videos on space exploration history.